Okay, YouTubers, this is Joe from ArtAlienTV, and today I've got a few things to show you. I've got this Gigapan here, I've got this one here, and I've got this one here. Now these are all taken on the same day. We got this mound, and this is from Sol 3331, Curiosity rover, not the Perseverance rover. The Perseverance rover at the moment is not doing a lot. It's been drilling holes and it's got pebbles stuck in its drill, and it's been faffing around trying to get the pebbles out, which I think they've done, and that's been dragging on for days and days now, so that hasn't taken many photos of any note recently. So I've been going back through some of these recent Curiosity rover images, which are actually really good and quite clear. This one here is in black and white. Now this is interesting because we got here, when you zoom in, as you have to with these things, when you zoom in, we've got two, what look like two skulls here. And there's one up here, just here, with these weird eyes. Look at these eyes here. There's the mouth, there's the chin, got two eyes, and the head coming up and around like this, okay? And there's another one down here, in front of this squarish rock, okay, just here. Now this is the black and white version. I've done a colorized version of this, which I'm going to show you in a second. This is a humanoid skull, I would say, or something very similar, just here. Now if you get too close to it, it doesn't actually look great with the magnifier. You've got to go back a bit, like that, and you can see there's an ear, eye socket, nasal cavity there, and teeth. Now, bear in mind, this is quite a long way from the rover, and it's not that big. I would say this is human size. It's about 6 to 9 inches high, somewhere about 7 or maybe 8. Hard to say exactly, but something around that size. Same size as my head or your head, probably. Maybe a little bit smaller. Now, the rover is back here, and zoom the camera in a bit, so it's deceptive. You can only really work out the size of these down to distance, and if we don't know the exact distance, we cannot work out the exact size, which is why I rarely give exact sizes, because it's impossible to do. I've got a clip of these here as well. There's a clip of that one enhanced with a bit of colour. There's the raw clip there. It's quite dark in the raw image. And there it is with a colour filter. You can see the eye socket here, eye socket there. This is the nose in the middle. The dark triangular shaped hole there is the nasal cavity. There's an ear. It's got hair, and the chin here with sort of rugged or jagged teeth. Okay, there's the chin coming around the jaw. You can see the jawline just there. You can see the cheekbone sticking out. I'll show you that in more detail in a minute. In the colorized version here, you can see it as well, and I put both enhanced clips on the side for you here. Let's look at this one up here. This is colorized in a sort of brownish filter, and now whether that looks better or not, I don't know. It looks more lifelike, but it doesn't make it clearer. You can see, if you go back a little bit, you can see the details on it slightly differently in this sort of colour. There's the mouth. Almost non-existent nose. Now, I have shown many skulls before on Mars, a lot of them humanoid, a lot of them not. And a lot of the humanoid skulls have very short noses. And this looks like another one, with a very unpronounced nose, quite short, quite a clear chin and a mouth there, quite a big mouth, head coming up, some kind of detail on the head. Now, whether this is a carving or an actual head, I don't know. It's not clear enough and not close enough. And in fact, when you zoom out, this must be quite a lot bigger than this one. Not quite a lot bigger. I'd say this one is definitely bigger, because this one is lower down and closer to us, because this slopes towards us. Now, this one at the bottom, I estimate to be about 7 or 8 inches, maybe 9, like I said. And this is a bit closer, but when you go back up the slope, this is further away and further up. So it's further away from the rover, because this slopes backwards to the top here. So this one's bigger. This is probably more like 12 inches. I would say this is not a human skull, this one. It's humanoid, but not human. Whereas the one below looks much more Earth-like. This one doesn't. What the hell is going on with these eyes here? Very, very interesting indeed. Could it be a helmet? Could it be a carving? Would an actual skull have bright eyes like that? I don't think so. It's very strange. You would expect to see on the skull two dark holes there, orbits, and like we have on this one down here. Let's look at the enhanced clips I've got, and then we'll move on. I've got some other stuff to show you in this one as well in a minute. We'll come to that in a minute. I'll quickly show you these first. Now, this is the one lower down. This is one I think is human, or something close to it. Okay. If I zoom in, you can see an eye socket here coming right round. There's another one here. This comes up like that. This is the nasal cavity there, which is human shaped. Right? We've got teeth here. Chin coming round, quite squarish. Coming up here, we can see the jawline coming up here. We've got a pronounced cheekbone here. Right? We've got an ear here, with internal detail. So this is mummified. In other words, this was a burial, and like many of the burials here, often you only find the head, okay? And I think the bones or the body were often either separated or they were buried in a sitting position, as I've shown before. That's why we see the head sticking out quite a lot. And often you'll just see a head or what looks like a rock sticking out with a bit of hair on it like this, right? Little hairy rocks. Now, I think a lot of the hairy rocks we see are not necessarily rocks with growth on them. They are the top of the head of some of these burials, and we're only seeing the hair and the very top of the head. But you cannot recognise it for what it is, because in order to recognise a skull or a mummified head like we have here, you need to see the eye sockets, the nasal cavity, the teeth, the jaw, and other details to confirm what it is. And up here we've got some hair detail. Now, bear in mind this is a long way off, so the detail is a bit fuzzy because it's probably over 25 feet away. Now, a human skull, if you or a model of a human skull, for instance, if you get something that size, like a little football or something like that, which is about 8 inches high or in diameter, and if you put it 25 feet away on the ground and then take a photo of it with your mobile phone without zooming in, right? You're not allowed to zoom in. You've got to take it from your position. Then look at that photograph, put it on your computer, and then zoom in and crop it and see how fuzzy it looks. You'll be surprised, even with the best mobile phone cameras. If you don't zoom into an object and you don't focus on the object, it will look like this. It will look a bit fuzzy. So we've got this fuzzy hair detail here. Okay, you can see the texture in there, right? Pretty cool, I would say. And I've used a sort of greenish kind of brown filter here, because if you go too brown, it doesn't look great. There we are. And you can see all that detail in the black and white, raw, completely raw clip here. You can see the hair, you can see the eye sockets, you can see the nasal cavity there, you can see the teeth, you can see the jaw, and the ear here as well. So it's all there. All I've done is make it brighter and easier for you to see. Okay. Now this one is the one further up, which is bigger and doesn't look human. It's humanoid but not human, because if this was a dead humanoid or human, we would have, like the one we just seen, we would have a dark eye socket there and a dark eye socket here. Not these bright, weird bright eyes and a very short nose there. Okay. A large mouth coming right back to here. So the eyes are wrong. But what these may be are eyebrows. Or, like some of the other burials that I've shown, going right back many years now on Mars, a lot of them seem to have had precious stones, shaped precious stones, placed in their eye sockets. Okay? Like some cultures on Earth do. This was a sort of ritual burial sort of thing that some cultures used to do on Earth in Central and South America and other parts of the world as well, where they would almost sort of deify their ancestors when they died. Like say grandmother died, they would put her they would bury her in a sitting position, often in a cave or a little pit, like they do in Peru, and they would often visit them and give them presents and offerings. And this also happens in places like in the Himalayan areas as well, in Asia, and places like that, where people are buried sitting in a shroud, and they often go and visit them and give them offerings and talk to them and stuff like that as well. So maybe that is what we're seeing here, but the fact that these eyes are bright is very strange. And I'm trying to work out why that is. There's not really enough detail, but you can see, go back a little bit, you can see that the head comes right out like this, with some sort of detail on top there, like a hat, almost like a hat or something. And it's sort of got folds in it. There's a rock next to it or some object here. Don't really know what that is. But you can see the chin coming right out here, sort of jutting chin, right? And the mouth. A short nose with almost no shadow. So it's small, very small and flat, and very short. And then we have these two, what look like very bright, reflective eyes, which look really, really strange, and I don't really understand that. So there could be a number of explanations for that. This may not actually be a mummified head. This may be an actual carving or something, or depiction of somebody. And the light is just reflecting on the stonework here, which may be made of the local stone or some other, or even moulded out of clay, like I've shown before. Okay, there's the raw clip. This is the completely raw clip, and it's quite dark, right? But you can see those two eyes there, right? Even in the dark, gloomy, distant, blurry picture of this, okay? But once you add contrast and a colour filter and brighten the bejesus out of it, then you can actually see it. There are things like this all over Mars, not just in the Gale crater here by Mount Sharp, but also by the Perseverance rover. They're all over the place, and I keep finding them. And there are animals as well, animal remains and carvings of animals, and as well as technical things like possibly wrecked vehicles, which we don't find very often, but they are there as well as ruined buildings and stuff everywhere. There was also this one. Now I'll show you this one first. This is weird. This looks like a carving, carved out of rock, and this is in the other Gigapan I'm just about to show you, but I'm going to show you this first while I'm here. This is really odd, and it looks similar to some that I found before. Nose with nostril, another nostril that side, small mouth in a sort of pouting shape, chin, monobrow goes right across, and if you look in here, we have a blue eye here with a little highlight there. Okay, it's not very clear. I'll show you the Gigapan in a second. That's where the other eye is, just there. Just see that. And it's got this point and these jaggedy sort of points on the back, on top. Very strange, okay? Now, this may be an optical trick, but it wouldn't surprise me if it is an actual carving, because there are loads in the area. And this looks like part of a statue that's buried or broken off. And I think a lot of the time they didn't actually make complete statues. I think they had a sort of a head fetish kind of thing going on, where they just carved heads and just left, and they just sat on the ground, a bit like in Central America, some of the statues there, and also in places like Turkey you see that as well. And they just carved a head and made it just as a head, rather like a portrait, rather than doing the whole body. So that's possible. Now I'm just going to show you the Gigapan. This is the other Gigapan, which is facing the other way, taken on the same day. Okay, so this is facing opposite where we were just looking on that mountainous ridge here. Okay, this is facing one way, and then the rover turned the cameras round, the mass camera, and took these photos, which are really stunning. This was taken in colour. Now, I've enhanced the colour just a little bit with this because when you look at the actual raw images, they're very brown and the sky is brown. Now, we know that the sky is not brown on Mars, it's blue like ours. So I've filtered it a bit to bring the blues back in to make it look more natural. And the reason I think they use the brown filter, one of the reasons, as I've said and have been saying for many years, is to hide things like this. Now, if you look carefully, we got this rocky kind of like cliff edge here. How high is this? Probably 40 feet. This bit here, this is probably about 30. Don't know exactly. Maybe 25. But basically, if you look really carefully, there's loads of intricate detail in this rock face here. And not only do we have these weird artificial looking patterns in the rock here, like we have here, right, which looks like reinforced concrete, as I've shown a lot of before recently. But when you scroll over here, we got some really complex stuff going on here, which is really interesting. And then we have this kind of rocky outcrop sticking out. And just below it, we have what looks like moss growing on the rock, just here. And there's some more over here as well. But it only grows, it only seems to be in certain places. Now, if these nodules on the rock here were not organic growth, then I would expect to see them here, on this rock here. But why are they here and not here? This rock is almost completely free of these things. This weird greeny sort of mossy material, okay? Now, I think this is moss, and the reason I think this is moss is because certain types of moss do not grow and do not like direct sunlight, or at least not very much of it, and they grow in shade, under trees, on rocks, and things like that. In nature, certain types of moss we have, and also fungi, will only grow in the shade, okay? Because it doesn't like direct radiation from the sun. And what we have here, on this sort of cliff or rocky sort of outcrop here, are areas of rock which are probably in shadow most of the time. And this outcropping here, I think, would cause a shadow coming down in this direction. And in the shadow, we have what looks like moss growing here, okay? Just here. And I didn't add any green to this. It goes a sort of greeny colour when you colour correct the image and add the blues back in, which I've done to make it look like it actually looks on Mars, okay? And we do know that there is a blue sky there, because if you look at the recent images from the Perseverance rover, but mainly the Ingenuity helicopter, that takes real colour images, right? And the sky's blue. So most of the time it's blue, like ours. So they've been lying about that for many, many years. And I think the reason why they put the orange filter on these images is to filter out details like this, where we have possible moss growing in the shadowy areas of these overhangs on rocky outcrops and cliff edges like this. There's some more here. Now, it's much more dense in the area here where the shadow is. So you can see the shadow here. Now, this is sheltered from the sun a lot of the time, and there's a lot more of it here. And when you look around, you think, well, actually, there's quite a lot of it up here as well. In the shadowy areas, there's loads of this greeny kind of moss, right? But when you look at this bit of rock here in the sun, the brighter area, there isn't any. It's void of the same texture, okay? And then when you look at the shadow area over here again, there's more in here, right? These little nodules, these little green lumps. This, I think, is moss. And we've got some crazy, crazy textures in here. And we've even got like a little cavern, like a little cave entrance or something here, which may be, there may be a burial in there. Now, as I said, I first said probably about 9 or 10 years ago on my channel, a lot of these areas are like Valley of the Kings, especially in Gale Crater, where we have lots of kind of cliff edges and rocky outcrops. And they were not only modifying them with concrete, reinforced concrete, some of these areas, they were also carving out some of this stuff and burying people inside in a sitting position, or just with a skull and perhaps a pile of bones separate. Okay? And I've shown a lot of exposed areas like that, burials and burial mounds and dolmens and graves and exposed burial, all sorts of things like that before on my channel. And this is the kind of thing they do. Like in the Valley of the Kings, they would dig into the rock face, they'd chisel it out, and then stick the burial inside and then cover it back up with rocks and stuff, okay? And they may have even stuffed some of these areas with concrete to block them, to stop people robbing them, perhaps. Which may be why we have a mixture of actual rock and concrete in the area, in some of these areas, as well as them being eroded and broken down structures. But there's some crazy, crazy detail in here, and it's insane. Let me show you some of it in here before we go. And I'll put clips of all this in a minute anyway, so you can check these out properly, and you can freeze frame it, and you can take your own clips of these if you like. You can see it. You can see what it is in the shadow here, and it comes down in sort of triangle shape here, and you've got all these little kind of nodules of green material. That looks like moss. And up here we've got these crazy structures and fractures in this rock here. Really interesting. And there's loads of weird stuff going on in this rock, and I think a lot of it is actual signs of not only tree roots that have petrified and fossilized in some of it, but and other plant roots and stuff which are fossilized, but also possible living material like we have here, right? With this bit sticking out here at the top, and then down below we have all this green textured weird sort of mossy stuff, right? Is it growth? It could be. And there's an awesome view at the end of this as well. I've got a big clip of this to show you as well in the video at the end. So we've got that growth down here and all that weird fractured stuff up here. But when you go to the end, we've got this amazing view, and I think this is the west side of Gale Crater. Now, how far away do you think that is? Doesn't look that far, does it? Probably something like 30 miles away. The top of here, that top bit there is about 30 miles. And that's the top edge of the crater. And then we have a meandering riverbed coming down here in a zigzag down into Gale Crater. And if you wished to exit Gale Crater, that would be one way to exit, by travelling up this riverbed, which meanders all the way up the side of Gale Crater. The height of this from the ground is 4.5 kilometres, okay? 4,500 metres from there, approximately from there to the bottom. We're not seeing the very bottom here, okay? So that's an amazing view, that. And I've got clips of that, which I'm going to show you. And there's also a perfectly square cut out part here. So some of this is probably reinforced concrete, I don't know. It looks like it. And we just happen to have lots of erosion and possible moss and greenery growing on the side of this thing, okay, in the shadowy areas, but not in the exposed areas, which says to me it's growth. And what they're like roots coming down through the rock that's fossilized. We've got this cavern or little cave area here. There's loads of crazy stuff here, right? And we got that possible statue head over here, just there. I'll show you that with a magnifier. I only just spotted this last night. Let's go back a little bit. You've got, there's the eye, there's the nose, there's the little mouth, and there's the chin. Could be wrong on that. It might just be an optical trick, so I'm not going to go on too much about that. Pretty hard to deny because it's even got hair, this one. Look at the hair on top. Quite light coloured hair on top, okay? And you can see the sort of big gappy teeth there. All comments really help these videos, okay? So thanks for watching. I will see you soon. Clips coming up now.